Welcome to the Wild and Fierce podcast. We are your hosts, Amber
and Johanna. We're here to explore womanhood through real, raw, and unfiltered conversations.
Please remember this podcast is for education only and not a substitute for medical advice. Always consult your own healthcare professional.
Let's dive in. Hello. Welcome back to the Wild and Fierce podcast. Today, we're going to do a deep dive on co-sleeping, which is something that I'm very excited to pick Brittni's brain on and learn so much more about because I feel like it's so nuanced. There's so many pros and cons, and it seems like everyone has an opinion, whether you want to hear it or not. So we're going to be deep diving on co-sleeping, crying it out, to not cry it out, infant sleep in general, naps, and all that good stuff. So today we have Brittni, is it Cepeda? Is that how you say your last name?
Yeah.
Brittni Cepeda, awesome.
Yep.
So Brittni Cepeda, she is a holistic infant and toddler sleep specialist and founder of Resting in Motherhood. So Brittni, do you mind spending a minute or two kind of introing yourself, how you got into this work, why you're passionate about it, and then we'll dive into the meat of the topic.
Totally. Yes. Hello. And just want to say thanks for having me. But I am Brittni. I'm a certified infant and toddler sleep specialist. I'm a mama to, I cannot believe it, an almost 6-year-old. And she is, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
She is my why for why I am here. I went into birth having this vision of what sleep was going to look like. I knew I was never going to do cry it out, but I was gifted a book, and the whole premise of the book was eat, play, sleep. So you let baby eat, you let them play, and then they sleep. And the whole idea is that they're not feeding to sleep because the book essentially deems it a bad habit. So I'm very type A. It's funny because now I always tell people I'm very type A in a lot of areas of my life, and in motherhood, I'm very type B. But it took me a while to get there. But I had these visions of what sleep was going to look like. My spirited, highly sensitive child came into the world and quickly told me, no, this is not how we're doing things. And she did not cause me, but the expectations that I had around baby sleep and then the mismatch, with what was actually happening in my life caused me to go into deep postpartum anxiety. I was so stressed about sleep, so anxious, sitting in a dark room, trying to force the nap, trying to get her down, and then she'd wake up, and all of those things that we all deal with silently often. And so I remember one night, 4 a.m., middle of the night waking, I'm scrolling Instagram, and I stumble upon a post about safe co-sleeping, and then it kind of just opened up this whole world to me. I started becoming really passionate about, oh my gosh, I don't have to do things the way everyone is telling me. And then fast forward to when Lila was 12 months, I decided to get my sleep certification, and now here we are almost 5 years later, and it's been such an amazing journey.
I feel like you just explained so much of my first postpartum experience.
And I think
literally,
it's so common. Yeah.
Yes. When you're talking about forcing the nap, I literally remember sitting, so my daughter was in the bassinet in our bedroom, and I remember sitting on our bed, almost in tears, trying so hard to get her to nap. And I had really bad postpartum anxiety, especially with her. And my anxiety showed up in me controlling everything, every bottle, every nursing session, every minute she slept. And so when that got disrupted, my anxiety would get so out of control. So that's why, and I did the same thing, the whole eat, play, sleep thing. And if I broke that pattern, I felt like such a failure. So,
Totally.
Oh, yeah, I think this is gonna be a powerful episode, you guys.
Yeah.
So needed.
Yeah, I'm super excited. Yeah, because I feel like I luckily have some women in my life that are pretty type B with motherhood. So they're the baby will sleep on me or sleep in the crib, whatever they want to. You're not forcing things. So I feel like I've luckily had exposure to that. So that's kind of my plan moving forward once baby is here. But I could totally see how you're oh my God, the baby's not sleeping or I can't get them down. And it's just super stressful. And I'm sure I'll have my moments. But it's kind of, it's cool to have this education so much more at forefront now. And it's talked about and it's not so demonized.
Absolutely.
Totally. Yeah. And I would say even in the last 6 years, there's really kind of been this movement of, let's normalize co-sleeping, let's normalize attachment parenting, all of that. And gosh, I know, I think even if what's available now was available to me 6 years ago, I wouldn't have had such bad anxiety.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I always felt like I was failing if I didn't co-sleep if my baby wasn't sleeping through the night at a certain amount of time. Like that's a milestone that I feel like we ask parents, like, "Was baby sleeping through the night yet?" And then you almost feel shame if you're like, "Well, no, not yet. Am I doing something wrong? Is there something wrong with my baby?" And then like my son, he didn't sleep through the night till he was maybe 6 months. My daughter was 6 weeks though, because I had to hit that mark. But it
Yeah.
caused me so much stress. So, okay.
I know. And I'm laughing internally because I'm like, my daughter didn't sleep through the night till she was 2.5 years old, right? And now, like,
And that's probably normal.
totally normal, right? But I mean, in that first year, when somebody's asking you, like, are they sleeping through the night? And you have to say no, it feels like a failure. And then
Yes.
all of the advice comes, and yeah, it's a whole cycle.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, totally. I think I'm gonna go off our outline just a little bit, but I
Go for
think
it.
I'd really love for you to share a little bit about co-sleeping and how it like varies throughout the world and like history, because I know that co-sleeping used to be much more common, and then with modern society, sleep training kind of came around, and I know the like an inventor of sleep training, I believe, is male, and I think it happened a long time ago. So I'd love if you could just like give a little history and maybe some definitions of like sleep training, co-sleeping, stuff like that, just in case women listening don't understand any of these terms or don't understand where some of these things like came about.
Totally. Okay, so we'll start with the definition of co-sleeping. So, co-sleeping is actually just sleeping within proximity range of your little one. So, it can actually be room sharing, it could be separate surface co-sleeping where you're sleeping with like a co-sleeping bassinet or a sidecar crib. It can be bed sharing, which is I think a lot of times when we refer to co-sleeping, what we're actually referring to is bed sharing, where you're sharing a bed with your child. And I look at sleep from like an anthropological point of view and cross-culturally, meaning I'm going to look at how have we been sleeping as a human race for thousands and thousands of years, and then how are people sleeping all over the world. So co-sleeping is the biological norm. If we break it down to like just a species, a biological setup, we are designed just like primates to sleep with our young and keep them very close. And so, if we look back thousands and thousands of years ago, yeah, we just slept with our babies and it wasn't known as co-sleeping or bed sharing or anything. It was just sleeping. And then we look even today worldwide. I'm no longer married, but my husband, when we were married, he's from Chile and his mother came for the birth, and when she saw that we were going to have Lila, my daughter, in the bassinet, she was like, "Oh my gosh, you're not worried about her like being," even though the bassinet was like right next to the bed. She's like, "I'm so worried about her." And it was kind of this eye-opening thought of like, oh, like people are co-sleeping. So like in Chile, it's normal to co-sleep. India, I know it's very normal to co-sleep. China, Japan, people are co-sleeping all over the world, and really it's just our Western little bubble that co-sleeping has been deemed unsafe, dangerous, a bad habit, right? All of these things. And then sleep training, I think everyone is going to have kind of their own unique definition of sleep training, but how I coin or like how I define sleep training is anytime we're using like a behavioral technique to modify sleep. So cry it out, pick up, put down, padding. So like the Ferber. And then anytime we're trying to change biologically normal infant sleep patterns. So we're trying to make them do something outside of what should be biologically expected of them. And then this one kind of goes with the behavioral piece, but anytime we're, modifying our response, our connection with the hopes of getting better sleep. So that's my kind of definition of sleep training. Some people will say, like, well, a routine is sleep training. No, a routine is creating healthy sleep hygiene. But Cry It Out as we know it kind of came into the world in the 1950s. And there's kind of three main men. And of course, right as I'm saying this, all of their names have like left
That's
my
okay.
brain. But they were all white male physicians who probably had never taken care of their own children, if they even had children. And the other reason I think it's important to note that they were white is because it's one group of people. So we're not looking at like what was happening in other places in the world. So it came to be kind of right when moms were needing to get back into the work, women were needing to get back into the workforce, and they were, it's how can we make moms productive? How can we, okay, well, they're not sleeping with their children, so let's kind of, we need to get them back in, so we're going to leave their babies to cry it out. And that's really where it came from.
Okay, I have a question on this. Would you consider using like what's the really fancy crib called? The
The
one that
snoo.
rocks and shit. Does snoo and like ones like that rock and all those things, is that technically considered sleep training in a sense?
I guess you could consider it sleep training. To me, and there's so many things. It's like using a gadget to provide what our human
Yes.
connection does. So similar to, and I am not talking bad about pacifiers, but similar to the pacifier where we're told like if we're breastfeeding our baby, oh, they're just using you as a pacifier. Well, no, they're using the pacifier to mimic the breast, right? And so all of these gadgets, even like the swaddle, it's all of these things invented to almost take away that human connection. Think about the swaddle. It's so that baby feels like they're tied up against us. So for me, the snoo, and actually the snoo can represent a SIDS risk simply because it keeps baby in a deeper stage of sleep than they're designed for. So
Mhm.
I'm firmly a team no snoo. Unless you want a very fancy bassinet that you're not using all of the gadgets for, right? But the rocking, it's like we're trying to tell parents rocking your baby to sleep is a bad habit, but it's not a bad habit if you have the snoo do it for you, right? It's just very backwards when you take a step back.
I love that explanation. One thing that you said that I think is so important too is the SIDS part that I want you to elaborate on for a
Mhm. Yeah.
second, because that wasn't something that I felt like I heard until I had my second. And that was when it was so eye-opening to me of when a baby wakes at night, it's a safety thing. Like it's biological, like instincts. That's what I'm looking for. It's like an
Yeah.
instinctual thing that's literally designed to keep your baby alive. So can you elaborate on that really quick? Because I think that piece is so important.
Yeah, so you just explained it really well. SIDS is actually, or frequent waking, sorry, let me back up. Frequent waking is a natural built-in protection against SIDS. And when I say
Can I
frequent,
pause real quick
yeah.
just for people that don't know what SIDS is?
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome. So
Thank you.
it's when babies die unexplainably in their crib, or I mean, sometimes it does happen co-sleeping, but co-sleeping is not the reason why. And that's truly the key part there is we don't know why SIDS is happening, right? It's not caused by bed sharing. It's not caused specifically by the crib either, right? It's just this sudden infant death. But frequent waking, so waking about every 2 to 3 hours, keeps the brain in lighter stages of sleep, which then helps baby rouse easier if something is wrong, right? So maybe it's a blocked airway, maybe it's, just something going on. So when we do the snoo or the swaddle or anything else that promotes deeper sleep, then
Mhm.
we're starting to mess with biology there, and we're getting babies into these deeper stages of sleep than is actually safe because they're not able to rouse themselves as easily and signal that something's wrong.
And that's something that I took a breastfeeding class, and they were talking about how actually in the first couple weeks, I'd be curious on your take on this too. The first couple weeks, actually using a pacifier can be helpful because it doesn't allow the baby to go into a deeper sleep. And so using that between feeds so they're staying in a lighter sleep, and that can help prevent the risk of SIDS as well. What are your thoughts on that?
So the pacifier can prevent SIDS, just like you said. Also, like if there's anything going on with the airway, even later on, that's actually sometimes a red flag to me when a client comes to me and they're like, my baby has to sleep with the pacifier. Yes,
Yeah.
there's comfort there, but it can also be a sign like something's going on with the airway. And babies are so smart, like in their subconscious, that they're like, this pacifier keeps my airway open, so I'm going to
Interesting.
keep it in. So yeah, I mean, I think it can be great, but also let's not also downplay. And I want to be very mindful here of we also have to take care of our mental health. But in the first couple of weeks with your newborn, if you feel safe co-sleeping, you could also just do latched sleep all night if
Yeah.
that feels supportive to you. Sometimes we're feeling touched out, right? So I want to also
Yeah.
preface that by saying you have to do what's best for you, but don't be afraid to do that if it feels like a good option.
Yeah, super interesting. Well, and I think something that from like if I like rewind to my life like 8 months ago before I knew much about breastfeeding or knew much about co-sleeping and stuff like that, you always hear co-sleeping isn't safe due to SIDS. But then as you start to learn about things, it's like actually it almost feels like SIDS is even a higher risk when the baby is out of your room or when you're not in reach or they're not hearing you mama breathing or they're not able to latch easily. And it's just so interesting how things have been kind of twisted of like potentially the safest thing to prevent SIDS is co-sleeping, but then the scare tactic is like don't co-sleep because of SIDS.
Well, if we
Oh,
go really deep, sorry, Brittany, I cut you off real quick.
you go. Yeah.
If we go really deep, I don't know if we want to cross this bridge, but I'm going to go on it.
Let's cross it.
I'm going to cross it. If we look at the sleep training industry and baby
Mhm.
product
Yeah.
industry, of course they want to scare parents into thinking that co-sleeping
Yeah.
is not good because think about the amount of products
Yeah.
that they benefit off of us being scared and thinking we need. I was talking to a new client the other day, and she was like, the overwhelm of what sleep sack I need, what pacifier I need, all of these items, the bassinet, like you name it, it is so overwhelming. Like I think about even with Emmy, the amount of stupid sleep sacks I bought trying to find the magical one that would work, versus like, what if I had just tried bringing her into bed with me? But I was so against that at the time. They want us to be scared because they're making so much money off of us.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Britt.
Totally. Yeah, no, that's okay. And you can't forget that the sleep training industry is a multi-billion dollar industry, right? I remember seeing a comment a while ago, gosh, years at this point, but it was something about the sleep training industry, and somebody commented, like, I'm in marketing. And when I was in a marketing class in college, the sleep training industry was used as an example of brilliant marketing. So let's not forget that they are master marketers. I forgot what was I saying when we kind of like jumped in at the same time? Where was I going with that?
It was related to co-sleeping and SIDS, right? Like the fear
Oh, yes, the
mongering.
crib
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
okay, yes. And so the crib, there's a really great book that I think every expectant mama or any mama should read. It's called Safe Infant Sleep. It's by Dr. James McKenna. It's all about safe co-sleeping, but he actually talks about how SIDS rates started increasing with the crib. Not so like let's think years and years ago before the crib, SIDS wasn't like this big thing. And even in countries that primarily bed share, like Japan and China, SIDS rates are the lowest. Just like
Mhm.
you said, because if we have a baby in another room, and maybe just like you talked about, like waking up to mom's breathing, or mom wakes up and hears just a kind of different sound in baby, you can catch that so much quicker because they're right there. But yes, even if you have a monitor, sometimes it's not loud enough, or maybe you just think like, oh, they're just kind of like, making noises in their sleep. So even if we're not or I should say, even if we're not bed sharing, I highly recommend room sharing just so that you can hear baby because it's true. If SIDS is not caused by the bed, and even if a baby were to die in bed, it wasn't the location that caused it unless we have like a parent who was on drugs or alcohol and did roll over onto baby. And that's where bed sharing gets such a bad rap because when there are co-sleeping deaths, it's not actually described why. And generally speaking, most co-sleeping deaths have occurred just like that with a parent who was drunk or inebriated, with a parent who smokes because smoking increases the risk of SIDS already, or like if it was done in a recliner. And I can't tell you how many moms are like, oh, I sleep with my baby in the recliner, and they think it's safer than bringing baby into bed when really it's actually more dangerous.
Yeah.
Well, that and I know like loose clothing and stuff too, because we did do a fair
Right.
amount of bed sharing with my second, and that was I did a bunch of research on like, okay, what's safe to wear, what's not safe to wear, and that was a big thing I read about too, was like a lot of loose clothing. So I always wore like just a nursing bra, or like sometimes I just wore nothing. So there wasn't a bunch of loose stuff around baby's face too.
Totally. Yeah. And even like long hair should
Yeah.
be tucked away.
Yep.
Cool. I think let's talk about some like myths that are out there about sleep training because it's kind of interesting as we're talking about all these things, and I work in women's health and a lot of like hormone stuff, so birth control is a big thing, and then I'm currently preparing for births, and it's just like as you like observe every aspect of a woman's life, it's amazing how often we're convinced that we need something else for our bodies. Like we need birth control to regulate hormones. We need, monitoring to monitor our pregnancy. We need ultrasounds to tell us that we're safe. We need, whatever it might be. And then it's like, man, okay, now we need a monitor and like a foot, like those little like feet attachments to like
What is that called? Like
I don't know,
or
but
something? Yeah.
I was like,
The
I'm not gonna put like a
we
continuous
had
monitor
what are
on my
those
baby.
called?
Like,
We had them for a while with Emmy because it was
oh,
a thing. It was
it'd be so stressful. I
oh,
can't
Owlet.
imagine.
It's called the Owlet monitor.
Yes.
Hmm?
So like that, we need cameras, we need all these things in order to feel quote unquote safe. And it just like completely detaches us from our intuition, how we're naturally supposed to be. And plus, it's also making, surprise, surprise, a bunch of money for an industry that, profits. Oh, and then I was thinking breastfeeding, like formula. We were also convinced that formula is better than our own breast milk and bottles are better. And it's just crazy when you really start to zoom out and you look at a woman's experience and like how many products have been created to replace a woman's intuition or natural bodily processes. And then all these women are so terrified about just trusting themselves and their body. And it just makes sense when we like really start to like look at like how messed up things are. It's kind of makes you feel a little bit like you're like trudging through sand to like make a change, but like luckily we're starting to make some changes. Well, holy smokes. The thought that really came to mind for formula is formula also became really popular in the 1940s and 50s, which is right when sleep training came out. And it's when women went into the workplace. And it's just a really interesting time experience and timeline for a lot of us.
Totally.
Okay, so some myths that I think that we would probably like to touch on would be naps needing to be a certain length, that a baby must fall asleep on their own, that you might be creating bad habits by feeding to sleep, sleep schedules, a big push for babies sleeping through the night, and pacifiers and stuff like that. So are there any of those that you would like to specifically like myth bust or touch on, or you think that would be most important to talk about?
Gosh, I feel like all of them. I think the
Let's
big
touch on
one.
all of them. Go
Yeah.
for it.
Okay. So I'll start at the top. So naps needing to be a certain length. That one is so frustrating. And here's what I'll zoom back and say. The sleep training industry is really good at making you think that just because your baby is a certain age, they need to be following X wake window, or they need to be on a certain amount of naps, or their naps need to be a certain length, or their nighttime sleep should be 12 hours, whatever the case may be. What we need to understand is every single child is unique. And if we think about like us as adults, like I need my 8 to 9 hours of sleep every night. I don't know how I survived the first 2.5 years of motherhood, but I did it. But like I need a lot of sleep, right? Whereas someone else might need less sleep and they do great. So why as adults do we kind of accept our differences, but with our children, it's like, oh, they're 6 months old, so they need to be on like a 2 hour wake window, and the naps need to be an hour and a half, and bedtime needs to be at 7 when we have this very unique human in front of us. And so all children have unique sleep needs. We have our low sleep needs babies, we have our average sleep need babies, and then we have our high sleep needs babies. So low sleep needs are obviously going to need less sleep in a 24-hour period. High sleep needs are going to need more sleep in a 24-hour period, and then there's kind of that range. So our high sleep needs babies are probably going to be the ones that naturally just do those longer naps. And they're the ones where you see somebody that's like, my baby just woke up from a 2 hour nap. And you're like, how? My baby's napping 20 minutes. You probably most likely have a lower sleep needs child who just doesn't need as much sleep. And the other thing to think about is up until babies are on about 2 naps, those naps are generally going to be shorter simply because they can only get so much sleep in a 24-hour period. And oftentimes, when we're trying to force the longer nap, then we end up with, split nights where baby's awake for a long period in the middle of the night, or they're fighting bedtime, or they're just waking really frequently, or they're early rising in the morning. So when we try to force those things, those longer naps that aren't meant for them, we actually end up hurting sleep in a different area anyways.
Yeah.
That's like Emmy and Bo. Emmy is my very high sleep need child. Like that girl took naps till she was like 4.5. And I'm
Oh
talking
my
like
gosh.
2 hours. So she'd sleep longer if I didn't wake her up. Bo was the opposite. And I remember being like, what is wrong with him? Like, why doesn't he take super long naps like Emmy? And if we tried pushing for more naps, he did exactly what you said. He'd fight bedtime like crazy. He'd wake up in the middle of the night and want to party, or he'd wake up super early. Like he
Yeah.
will, there's no way he'll sleep taking naps till 4.5. Like I'll be lucky if we make it to 3 at this rate.
Yeah, well, and I'll just share this because I think people are like, what? But Lila, my daughter, stopped napping at 22 months.
Hmm.
And honestly, I was glad because at that point, with a nap, she was not tired for bed until like 10 or 11 p.m. And
Hmm.
then once we dropped that nap, I got like a glorious 6:30 p.m. bedtime and was like, what is this freedom? But I just like to show that because just like you said, some little ones are taking naps till 4, sometimes even 5, and other ones, little ones are dropping it before 2.
Yep. Yeah, my son's already fighting it real hard. Like he would love to be done. Then they're already getting like shorter and harder to get down. And I think I'm finally in like a place to be okay with that. But had that been the case with Emmy, I would not have been because I was so trained that like she had to sleep for a certain amount of time. Because if you take any of these courses that are out there around more sleep training structure, it's like the 45-minute intruder. Oh my gosh. Johanna, it's this whole thing of like a baby wakes up at 45 minutes. There's like all these magical things you can do to like make them sleep longer because it's this like magic 45-minute time. Or if it's not 90 minutes or whatever, like you feel like something's wrong.
If you're doing everything right, but still feel exhausted by 3 p.m., can't lose those stubborn 10 pounds, and your periods feel like a monthly battle, this isn't your fault. Here's what's really happening. Most women are following advice designed for men's bodies. We're told to cut carbs, try intermittent fasting, just eat less, and move more. But our metabolism works completely differently than males' metabolisms. Your body isn't being broken, it just has bad advice that's not actually geared towards you. When you're exhausted, moody, and your hormones feel chaotic, your body is actually trying to communicate with you. It's saying, I need support and not restriction. This is why we created the free masterclass, Women's Metabolism and Hormones Made Simple. In just about an hour, give or take, we'd like to talk, you'll finally understand why your body feels like it's working against you and exactly how to work with it instead. You'll learn about the truth about women's metabolism, how much food you actually need to support your hormones, and why weight loss is so much more complicated than calories in, calories out, especially for women. It is completely free and you can watch it anytime that works for you. This is such pivotal and important information that we wanted to make it super accessible. So you can either visit the show notes in this episode or head to wildmusewellness.com, go to resources and products, and you'll find the masterclass there. Stop fighting your body and start understanding it. Having like listening to you guys talk and Brittni, you explaining like nap lengths and like each unique human, it makes me really think that we need to drop the lingo of good sleeper or bad sleeper.
Totally.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because that's the thing, it's like sleep is unique to each child. So, like, if we have like a more sensitive, high needs child, are we going to call them a bad child simply because they're being who they are? No.
Mhm.
Well, some of society might, unfortunately. But, like, as a mom, I would never, my child is like as spirited and feisty as they come. And I would never refer to her as like a bad child.
Mhm.
And funnily enough, usually our more spirited, highly sensitive children are harder sleepers. And I almost don't even like the word harder sleepers, but for lack of a better term, they're just the ones who sleep less, they wake up more, and it's just who they are.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not necessarily an issue. And I kind of think, like, as an adult, if you kind of like zoom out and take yourself out of thinking about a baby or a child, as an adult, if we forced ourselves to nap when we don't need napping, of course we're going to wake up in the middle of the night ready to party because we've reached our quota.
Yeah.
And I
Totally.
feel like it's like not that complicated when you take the baby or child aspect out of it and you just think about them as a human.
One thing, and that kind of touches on what you talked about earlier, like how as women we are just like fed this narrative, essentially that we're not enough, right? Like we don't know, we need all of these things. And like from the oh my gosh, I just had an ADHD moment and I don't know where I was going with that. We were
You're
talking
welcome.
All that mom.
So, we're kind of talked out of our instincts.
Yeah.
Well, the sleep training industry does a really good job of like talking us out of common sense, like true
Yeah.
common sense, right? Like, oh, all naps need to be, in this dark, quiet room. Okay, well, have you ever seen a baby napping out and about? Yeah, you have in your life. Are they fine? Yes, right? And
Yeah.
so it's just almost like stepping back for a second when you receive advice or you see something online and like taking a second, like putting your common sense glasses on and being like, does this actually make sense? Chances are no, and it's just like a fear tactic to make you feel like you need to sleep train.
Yeah. Cool. I love that. Let's talk about babies must fall asleep on their own.
Yeah, so that is another like big one, fear tactic. If we look at sleep from a biological perspective, and I know you ladies wanted to touch on the nervous system, so I'm going to
Yes.
insert that now. So the nervous system is the key to sleep, right? So in order to to go to sleep, our brain, our nervous system needs to feel safe and secure, like there's no harm, right? Think about as an adult, we're putting our common sense glasses on. If you knew you weren't safe, would you go to sleep? No.
No.
Mhm.
And we have to also think about to our baby's brain being separated and alone is perceived as danger because our babies' brains today are the same as they were thousands and thousands of years ago. And so to them, truly being away from us is like I'm going to starve to death. Saber-toothed tiger is going to eat me, right? Like
Yeah.
whatever the case may be. So supporting your child to sleep is actually helping their nervous system calm and relax and then be able to go to sleep. And so, this idea that like supporting your children to sleep is creating a bad habit or makes them wake up. Babies do not wake up because they were supported to sleep. They wake up because they have a need and then they communicate that need. And so, supporting your child to sleep is actually, contrary to popular belief, one of the best things that you can do to support longer stretches and more independent sleep as they get older because you're making sleep this safe and secure
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
Well, even think about like when my husband's not home. I don't sleep as good.
Yep.
It takes me longer to fall asleep. Or like my
Totally.
littlest, his favorite thing is his bedtime routine. You read his books, you put on his little sleep sack that he loves, and then he wants you to rock him. So you rock him for a little bit, then he'll say, "Hold my hand." So then he wants to get in his bed, and then he wants you to hold
Oh,
his hand, and you'll hold his hand for a long time. Wait, there's more. Then he'll say, "Rub my back." So then he'll roll over, and then you got to rub his back. Then he's okay for you to leave, but he needs that high contact. My daughter, who's not as much like that, she wants her stories and then she just wants to be left alone. She wants to go to sleep. So just the differences between the two. And I am 100% a physical touch person. So like for me, knowing my husband's in bed next to me and just feeling him, or like sometimes I'll literally hold his arm or his hand. So I get it. But we assume that babies should be able to just detach and go to sleep on their own. But like we don't hold ourselves to those same standards. It's so
No, or even like
backwards.
people that sleep with their dogs in their bed, right? Like we
Yes.
have these comforts and yet we're not
but a
like
baby
we don't
shouldn't.
think our
Yeah.
children should.
Or like
Yeah.
a weighted blanket, same concept. This like huge fat around weighted blankets. It's the same idea.
Yeah.
Totally.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, creating bad habits versus creating a safe sleep space. I feel like we've kind of touched on that. Is there anything, Brittany, that you want to add to that one?
I think my biggest thing that I always tell families is don't let somebody else decide for you what a bad habit is. If it's working for you, it's not a bad habit. So whether that's, nursing to sleep, rocking to sleep, laying with your 6-year-old while they fall asleep, if it's working for you and it feels sustainable, it's not a bad habit.
Yeah.
Once it no longer feels sustainable, still not a bad habit. Now it's simply a pattern that you need to shift. And so I think we really need to just like I wish we could just like delete bad habit from the
Yeah.
baby world because there's truly no bad habits when it comes to babies.
Yeah.
Another thing that I hear, sorry, Johanna, go
That's
ahead.
okay. Go ahead.
Around bad habits is I'll hear, well, your baby's manipulating you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, your baby, is that what you're gonna say? Look at our brains thinking alike. Your baby's gonna manipulate you, or your baby's taking advantage of you by crying and then you come in, or nursing to sleep. Like that whole lingo around that too, I feel
Yeah.
like needs to go away. It's a baby. They
Yeah.
don't have the ability to think they're manipulating you. You are their person.
Yeah.
They want to feel safe and seen and loved by you.
Yeah.
It's not them manipulating
Totally.
you.
Yeah, well, and like from a developmental standpoint, babies and toddlers and even young children are not capable of manipulation. All they're capable of is having a need and finding ways to get that need met. And so we need to think about like in the first year of life when our baby is crying for us, they're not manipulating us. It's communicating a need. Maybe it's hunger, maybe it's thirst, maybe it's I'm uncomfortable. Or maybe it's simply my greatest need in life is connecting with you and I'm feeling disconnected right now, which is not manipulation. It's attachment in action.
That's how they're talking. It's like if I haven't seen my husband for a while and I feel like I need a hug or need to go on a date night to reconnect, I communicate that with words, but babies don't have words.
Exactly.
I'm not manipulating my husband. I'm just communicating my needs. And it's so interesting, like having this conversation of like how we've like made these little babies evil villains. It's crazy.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, we live in a society that like I did a post a long, long time ago and it simply said like babies are inconvenient. And I didn't mean it in a
Mhm.
negative way. I meant it in babies are inconvenient in our modern day society. And instead of trying to like make them a convenience, we need to simply just like support the inconvenience and accept it and stop trying to like, oh, you need to be independent sooner. You need to be, don't wake me up. It's like if we're going into this having children, I'm taking on all of your needs and
Yeah.
all of the stages of your development.
Yeah.
I
So
love
like
that
when you
so
get a
much.
puppy, you know you have to train them. Like you know you
Yeah.
have to like house train them, right? Like it'd be absurd to be like, you're 6 weeks now. You better be peeing outside without any work on my end.
And if you're not, then you're going to stay outside, right? Like, let's
Yeah.
try like something like crazy like that,
Yeah.
right? Or
Yeah.
I don't know, just yeah.
Yeah. Crazy. Okay, big push for babies to sleep through the night because this is something that I would actually really like some clarity on of like, and we talked about it a little bit, but like what is kind of like the sleep stage for throughout, like what could we expect and what is normal, what's not necessarily normal, and then like what's the big push for and kind of just talking through that a little bit more too.
Yeah, so I'll start with the norm, and I will say the norm for breastfed babies is different than formula fed babies simply because formula is digested much slower. So a breastfed baby is it's biologically normal for a breastfed baby to need to eat about every 2 to 3 hours all day and night. So the biological norm for sleep is it's biologically normal for babies to wake about every 2 to 3 hours throughout the night to get a quick feed or a snuggle and go back to sleep. So you can expect that in the whole first year of life, and it doesn't just magically stop at 12 months. Oftentimes, it's going longer than that. But I think the push for this again goes back to this like sleep training concept of how can we make mom more productive? How can we make children more convenient? Okay, they need to be sleeping through the night. And I do want to say here, some children will naturally sleep through the night in the first year of life with zero sleep training, right? But it's not the norm. And then the children who have been sleep trained, studies show that sleep trained children wake just as frequently as non-sleep trained children. They're just not signaling out to their parents. So they've learned when I cry at night, you don't come. So, in an effort to protect themselves from trauma, they stop crying at night. So, they're still waking. So, even knowing that, it's like, yeah, babies are not sleeping through the night. I remember this is a little bit different from nighttime sleep, but I don't follow her, but somehow it got sent to me. This lady posted like they were traveling somewhere, and so they put their baby in for a nap, and that place had a monitor when normally they don't have a monitor at home. And she recorded her daughter for 3 hours in the crib, not once sleeping, just kind of like laying there, babbling a little bit. And she's like, I've been putting her in the crib for like 3 hours, and I don't think she's ever been sleeping. This
Wild.
child is left in a room for 3 hours and was probably left to cry in order for that to happen in the beginning. And now mom's like, oh yeah. So you think about those people who are like, my child naps for 3 hours. Are they really? Or are you not attuned to what's going on behind that door? So
Mhm.
same thing at night.
So that's a powerful perspective that I feel
That's
like I've
really
never
interesting.
heard before.
Hmm.
Yeah, I know when I saw it, and then it breaks your heart, right?
Yeah.
Because you're like, they're just like laying in there.
For 3 hours, like no adult wants to lie in a bed by themselves
No,
for 3 hours.
No.
Yeah,
that's wild.
that makes me really sad.
Yeah. I do want to touch on one thing. We kind of skipped the sleep schedule one. You
Oh yeah.
touched on this earlier, Brittany. Can you either encourage or debunk your thought on wake windows and like I mean I followed this like strictly, I feel like with Emmy and like kind of roughly with Bo because I thought it was what we were supposed to do. But are wake windows legit? Are they not legit? Is that again more the it depends on the kiddo or what are your thoughts around that?
They're legit, but I would also say it depends on the child, and it's not a wake window that you're finding off of the internet. So, like, I'm a big supporter of using wake windows as kind of like a loose guide, but then using your little one's cues as the real guiding factor. So, I'll tell parents when they're like, I don't know, I just kind of like offer the nap. I'll say, stay home for a few days, start logging sleep. What time did they wake up in the morning? What time did you start seeing sleepy cues? You know, maybe those red eyebrows, rubbing the eyes, losing interest in a task, just getting fussy. And then what time, when you start seeing that, start trying for sleep and then mark what time they fell asleep. So the time between when they woke up in the morning to when they fell asleep for nap would be their wake window one, so to speak. Then you would do the same thing for the rest of the wake windows. And I try to, I mean, 5 to 7 days would be ideal because then you can start looking for those patterns and seeing, like, okay, what is their unique pattern? And then again, you're not like, oh, your average wake window is 2 hours. We need to go into the room. It's like around that 1 hour, 45-minute mark, start looking for those sleepy cues, start looking for the cues that they're giving you. And if you're seeing those sleepy cues, then yes, go in and try for the nap. So it's nice to just kind of have those so you know your little one's sleep needs, but they're not the rule. And always use your child as kind of that guiding factor.
I love that so much. Someone had, I don't remember who told it to me one time. It was some mom friend a long time ago. And she said, you can't, all you can do as a parent is you can offer the nap. You can't force the nap. And I feel
Mhm.
like that was such a breakthrough for me because I feel like with a lot of the stuff I took in when Emmy was little, it was force the nap. And then it would become this anxiety ridden, stressful thing environment for me and my daughter versus like, I'm going to offer it if I think you're showing sleepy cues. If you don't want to take it, that's okay. We'll get up, we'll move on, we'll try again in a little bit. Versus I remember how hard I would try to force sleep. And it just backfired. It wasn't healthy or beneficial, but that's what I thought was normal. So having the individual child's needs in mind and tracking it, it reminds me of like when Johanna and I have clients track food, like a
Mhm.
food journal, but a sleep
Totally.
journal.
Mhm.
And it's again, it's unique to each client. So doing that for your kids is such a cool way to do it.
Yeah. And it probably
Yeah.
changes as they get older too.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say about every 6 to 8 weeks, wake windows are going to extend by about 15 minutes, give or take. So if a current wake window stops, like you're like, I'm not seeing any sleepy cues, then it's probably time to kind of start extending. But again, your little one's cues are going to naturally guide you through
Mhm.
that. So just use them as the guide.
Yeah.
I love that so
Yeah.
much.
I love that.
Should we go to pacifiers? Is that the next
Yeah.
one we're on, right? What are your thoughts
Pacifiers.
on pacifiers?
I, so it's funny, I feel like I have a lot of thoughts because, like I said, sometimes a pacifier can be necessary when we have an unresolved, like, airway issue, tongue tie, enlarged adenoids, something like that going on. I don't think pacifiers are necessary, but I also, knowing that all children have unique sensory needs, some little ones really, really like that sucking. Sucking is the most regulating thing we can do as humans because think about it, what's the first thing we do when we're born? Well, normally we latch on to the breast and then we're sucking, and that's like comfort from mom where we just came from, right? So it can be very helpful, but I don't think it's necessary. And it's so funny. This was like the one thing that I didn't follow the rules on. I knew when my daughter was born, I was like, I don't want to do a pacifier because I don't want to have to wean it. So that's something to consider is like, are you starting to use it so much that when you stop, it's going to be a real challenge? But then also knowing, like, do I have a child that loves being latched, but I'm starting to get sore, or I just need a moment where they're not on my breast? Okay, then
Yeah.
use the pacifier. So I think as you're probably sensing a trend here, I'm very much like it's going to depend on the child and it's going to depend on your situation.
Which I
But
feel
Yeah.
like
Use
is
them.
somewhat. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I was
Use
going to
them for
say,
the
but I
guidance.
wouldn't classify it as bad or good, right? I
Yeah.
think it's just what is it the best option for you? And only you can decide that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
cool.
was gonna say, I think that's similar across both of our industries, like health, fitness, all the things. Like it's going to depend on the individual. There's no black or
Totally.
white answer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay.
Okay, for co-sleeping, I think there's a couple things that we want to make sure that we talk about. Amber, is there anything that you want to touch on?
No, go for it. No,
Okay,
you're good.
perfect. So I just asked on Instagram the other day, like postpartum recommendations, and someone was like, look into Safe Sleep 7. And I feel like that's something that you hear a lot. Can you talk about that, what that is, if you agree with it, if you don't agree with it, and the nuances with that?
Yes. So the Safe Sleep 7 is La Leche League's safe co-sleeping guidelines. This is so bad because I should know the Safe Sleep 7 off the top of my head, but I
I
just
can find it.
spitball it. But also I mentioned Safe Infant Sleep, which is the book by James McKenna. He also has he doesn't call it the Safe Sleep 7, but he calls it the Safe Co-Sleeping Guidelines, and they are very much aligned. So the Safe Sleep 7 is, and again, these might not be in order, but like sober,
Hmm.
non-smoking, safe sleep environment. So a safe sleep environment, ideally, if you're co-sleeping, is a very firm mattress. We don't want, you know, air mattresses, which I hope you're not normally sleeping on an air mattress anyways, but like we don't want air mattresses, we don't want water beds, which I don't think are very common anymore, but we also don't want like a pillow top mattress. You want a very firm mattress. You also don't want, ideally, you'd want your mattress kind of in the middle of the room so that if baby were to roll off the bed, they're not getting trapped between a headboard and a mattress or a wall and a mattress or anything like that. How many have I done? One, two, three, smoking, sober, sleep environment,
There's baby
uh,
on back.
baby on back, and breastfeeding
Hmm.
mom. And I want to clarify there, that's for the first 4 months. There have not been any studies done on formula feeding babies in those first 4 months of co-sleeping, and that's the only reason why it's safest for baby to be breastfed because, and this is not talking bad about formula, but formula in itself is a SIDS risk. It increases the risk of SIDS. So we want to make sure we're being safe on all, like in everything that we do. Okay, I now have to go back and redo.
The
I'm looking
last
at my
one
answers.
is no sweat.
No
But
sweat.
otherwise,
Okay,
you hit
so
them all.
yeah, so temperature wise, we don't want to like you ideally definitely no comforters on baby, but you don't want your baby to overheat. So like swaddle, which is also actually SIDS risk in itself, swaddle in the bed is a no-go. Generally, sleep sack is a no-go too, unless you live in a very, very cold place or you keep your bedroom very cold.
Okay. What would be cold?
This is where I think it's going to be unique to every
Mm.
family, but I would probably say like 65 degrees and under.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
we keep our house at like 68. So I feel
So
like
do we.
I've always been curious. I'm like, do I need a light sleep sack? Do I not need sleep sacks? Like what do we need there?
If you're co-sleeping, I would honestly probably just do like a cotton one, like footy PJ.
Okay. Do you recommend mittens and gloves or just
I never did, and actually thinking about this from a SIDS perspective, or and I guess that wouldn't even be SIDS, but from a safe sleep perspective, if the mittens can come off, I would say no, because if they were
yeah.
to make it over baby's face, we don't want that at night. So
Okay.
maybe like on a nap, if you're holding baby, you could, but I don't think it's necessary.
They do
Okay.
have those onesies, Johanna, that like
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
fold over.
Yeah.
Bo really liked those.
Yeah.
But my kids never left mittens on. They would always somehow come off. So
Yeah.
Yeah, and that also helps them avoid like scratching their little faces or you getting scratched on your breast at night. So yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay. And then for the safe surface, because I know I have this question, I'm sure a lot of other new moms or moms that are thinking about co-sleeping, you see a lot of stuff of like absolutely no blankets, but I'm like, could my husband have a blanket or my blanket's wrapped around me, but the baby doesn't have one? Or should I look at getting like really thick pajamas so I don't need a blanket? And then like, is my pillow okay? And just kind of like talking about like that sleep setup of like most optimal and ideal.
Yes, and you just made me realize that when I was talking about safe sleep setup, the biggest one that I forgot is mom's in what's called the cuddle curl. So mom is on her side. She's in kind of this protective curl around baby. And if anyone wants to go try this out, if you go lay on your bed with your arm kind of out like this on your side in a C position, it is physically impossible to roll over on your baby. So that's something, if anyone wants to go try it, it's kind of fun. But within that C curl, that cuddle curl, it is okay if you have a comforter at your waist and below and it's tucked into your knees. If you have your partner in the bed, they should have their own blanket and again be, ideally far away from baby and making sure that comforter cannot get pulled up over them. If you wanted to be extremely, extremely safe, they make like these, they look so silly, but they're like these giant adult like one pieces. And I think they're actually made for co-sleeping now. And they have like zippers at the breast. So you literally are in this like big footy PJ and you can just whip out the boob when you need to at night. So that would be the safest option. And then pillow you can absolutely use as long as you're in your cuddle curl and you have that arm essentially blocking your pillow from going any further down.
Okay, interesting. And then I think it's recommended, correct me if I'm wrong, like dad, mom, and then baby, not baby between dad and mom.
That is the safest.
Okay.
Dr. James McKenna talks about this in Safe Infant Sleep, that if dad is aware that baby is in bed, which hopefully he is, then he can, like, baby can be in the middle of you, but the safest would be dad, mom, baby.
Yeah. Okay. I felt like bed rails. What are your thoughts about that?
So there's a lot of controversy there.
Mm,
I personally think anytime that a baby could get wedged in somewhere, we have a risk there. That's why ideally mattresses on the floor. So if your mattress is, I mean, how big is a mattress? 6 inches maybe? If
Yeah.
your mattress is 6 inches off of the floor, even if they roll, ideally you have like a rug or carpet or something underneath the mattress, they're not rolling far, and that would be far safer than rolling into a bed rail, even a mesh one, really, because if they were to get entrapped in there, it's just still a risk.
yeah. Interesting. Well, and I was thinking I had a girlfriend that put her bassinet basically like up against the bed, not like an open one, like it was just like the bassinet wall in order to keep the baby from rolling off. But then that makes me think like, well, then what if the baby rolls into the bassinet and gets wedged between and so it would almost be better just like keep it open.
We had a
Totally.
floor
Yeah.
bed with Bo. That's what we did with him. He was when we cozy up with
Or
Bo, we were on the floor. Yeah, we had a floor bed and it was totally fine. It worked great for us. And again, it's like not far off the floor. If you were to roll, we had like a rug, like you mentioned. I did use a blanket. I cannot sleep without a blanket. Like it's a comfort thing for me. So like I would do what she said. I'd like kind of the comforter only came up to like my waist and then I would tuck it in. I did use a pillow. I always made sure we had like really tight fitted sheets on the bed. So there was like nothing next to Bo, but the floor bed was nice.
yeah.
And I didn't have to worry about like what if he rolls off and falls off to the floor on like a high bed.
Totally.
You're pregnant and everyone keeps asking, "Are you ready?" But honestly, you don't even know what ready means. Your doctor keeps mentioning your pelvic floor, but doesn't explain what it actually does. Your birth class covers breathing techniques, but you're still confused when to push and when to wait. Your friends share horror stories that leave you more terrified than prepared. Meanwhile, here you are Googling how to write a birth plan at 2 a.m., wondering if you should ask for an epidural or try to go at it natural, and completely overwhelmed by conflicting advice about postpartum recovery. You want to feel confident walking into the delivery room, or maybe a home birth or a birth center. You want to understand what your body needs to be strong for labor. You want a birth plan that's actually useful, not just wishful thinking. And you definitely don't want to be blindsided by what comes after baby arrives. That's exactly why I created my birth prep and postpartum recovery course. This isn't just another generic birth class that treats all women the same. This is a step-by-step guide specifically designed for your female body and your unique birth experience. I'll walk you through exactly how to prepare your pelvic floor and core for birth, not with generic Kegels, but with targeted exercises that actually work. You'll learn how to create a birth plan that's flexible, but also powerful, and how to advocate for yourself when it matters most. Most importantly, you'll discover what postpartum recovery really looks like and how to set yourself up for the strongest comeback possible. Instead of feeling anxious and unprepared, you'll feel confident and empowered. Instead of hoping for the best, you'll know exactly what to expect and how to handle whatever comes your way. For just $79, you get lifetime access to everything you need to prepare for birth and beyond. That's less than what most people spend on baby gear that you'll use for only 6 months. Your birth experience matters, your recovery matters, and most importantly, you matter. Check the show notes for the link to purchase and transform your pregnancy from overwhelming to empowering today.
Yeah,
So,
and I will say, speaking of the bed rail, I co-sleep with Lila simply because I love it and it still works for us. But I don't need a floor bed at this age, so we have a very high bed. So I do have a bed rail on her side because I mean she's 6 years old. I'm not worried about like if something happens, she's gonna let me know. So in that instance, I would say I would be okay with the bed rail after about 18 months when baby's very aware and can kind of signal if something's wrong.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, my bed is currently like on a king frame, so now we'll have to decide whether we just like take that apart and do a floor bed for a bit or what we want to do.
Yeah,
well, I mean, you could also like not do it right away too, because babies aren't going to roll super early on.
True.
Start
Yeah.
with what you have now and then see how it goes and then decide if you want to put it on the floor too.
Yeah, what age is that typically, Brittany? Like that they'll like you need to start paying attention to the rolling and stuff.
gosh, it's again unique to every child, but I would say around that 4 month marks. For
Yep.
some little ones, it's going to happen before. For some little ones, it's going to happen after. But as soon as you kind of start seeing that trying, even if they haven't done it in the day, doesn't mean they're not going to do it at night.
Totally.
Interesting. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Co-sleeping's correlation with independence, social adaptability, fewer tantrums, kind of like talking about like that aspect of co-sleeping because I feel like they talk about co-sleeping as causing independence issues and stuff like that, but I imagine with a safe nervous system, you're gonna have a safer adult. And so could you chat about that a little bit?
Totally, yeah. And there have been studies done, more than one. One was done specifically on boys, and they followed them, like boys who had co-slept versus boys who didn't, and they followed them into like adolescence. And I can't remember if it was at age 18 or 21, but the boys who co-slept then at 18 or 21 had like less social anxiety and were more like social and outgoing. And then another study has shown that toddlers, so meaning they co-slept from infancy to toddlerhood, compared to their same age counterparts, were able to initiate like more independent play. They were more secure in moving throughout the world. So it just goes to show that it's the opposite of what mainstream society would like us to make us think. But again, let's put those common sense glasses on and think about it. An attachment is a relationship. And yes, we're not having, romantic relationships with our children, but if you think about like the relationship in any area that you have a relationship, where are you going to feel most supported? Is it going to be in a relationship where someone's, like, I can't give you a hug, or I can't support you to sleep, or you're crying in the middle of the night and I'm not going to be there. Are you going to feel like you can really depend on them? Probably not. And then you're going to be more insecure versus if you have someone who's like, I'm here to support you through everything. I love you, like all of you. Yeah, you're going to be more independent and more secure because you have that safe base to kind of come back to.
Love
Okay,
that.
now we're going to transition right into cry it out because you just started talking about it. So let's elaborate whatever route you want to go on your thoughts on the cry it out method.
Yeah, so I want to first say this if you're listening and you did cry it out. This is
Me.
not judgment. Yeah, and I love you're a perfect example of like you can now hear this information and know kind of that when you know better, you do better,
Yep.
right? So this is no judgment to anyone who's done cry it out, but it is, I guess for lack of a better term, judgment that we have a whole industry that makes moms feel that they need to do this, that it's
Yeah.
their only option. Again, from the common sense lens, I mean, let's think about it. If you were left alone in a room to cry, sometimes for hours, sometimes until you throw up, which some sleep trainers will say, like, if they throw up, you go in, clean them up, and then leave again,
Oh,
which is a choking
Oh
risk
my
in
gosh.
itself. Like,
wow. Okay, I
let's
will say I never did that.
yeah. And they'll tell
Woo!
you, some will say that. So, I mean, if we think about this from just a common sense lens, if I talked about the nervous system earlier, if the greatest tool to better sleep is a regulated and calm nervous system, and yet we're leaving these children in a room to cry themselves to sleep, what are we teaching them? Nighttime is not safe. My needs will not be met at night. I am alone at night. Is that creating an environment conducive to feeling comfortable and safe with sleep? No. And I will tell you, a lot of my toddler sleep clients that come to me were toddlers that were sleep trained. And now they're terrified of going into their room at night. They're waking up multiple times. They're coming into, and there's nothing wrong with a toddler coming into your room. That's very normal, but they're coming into mom and dad's room in the middle of the night, right? Like it's obviously showing up later, the insecurities. And this is, again, no judgment to my families because obviously now they're coming to me knowing I don't want to do this again. So that is my spiel on Cry It Out. And one last thing that I do want to mention, which I think I kind of mentioned it earlier, but if we think about the nervous system like as a scale or regulation, when we're just sitting at kind of homeostasis, that's kind of our normal regulated nervous system. When we, experience a level of stress, we go into hypoarousal, which is like a little bit of stress, mild stress. And then when we go into like totally stressed out, completely dysregulated, we go into hyperarousal, which is like the most dysregulated we can be. So when a child is left to cry it out, they go up that dysregulation scale, they hit hyperarousal, and then they drop below homeostasis. And below homeostasis is kind of like a semi shutdown where, as an adult, this might be like after a stressful day, you just want to like turn the TV on or like mindlessly scroll Instagram and you're like shutting your brain off. But then we go below that to like our reptilian brain, which is literally like shut down, pass out. So that's what's happening with Cry It Out is they're going up to this hyper aroused state and then in order to protect themselves from trauma. Also, if we think about from the perspective of our babies being like from our brain being from thousands and thousands of years ago, you didn't want to be loud in the middle of the night and attract a tiger, like something into where you were. So they go up and then in an effort to protect themselves, they shut all the way down and then they fall asleep. Not because they learned how to sleep, but because the body literally shut down. And so I think when you know that, it's like, oh yeah, like why would I do that if the goal is sleep? Because it actually didn't teach sleep, it just knocked them out.
But nobody tells you that.
That's so
No.
sad.
Like all of the sleep training stuff makes it seem like you're doing this gift to your child to teach them to fall asleep on their own, to teach them independence, like you're teaching them sleeping skills. Like if someone chose to do cry it out, which again, I have zero judgment. I've done it. But like if I had had that explanation of what it was actually doing, that's it's completely different. Like that's not the story that you're getting told at all when you're learning about sleep training. They make it sound like a positive thing. Like you're doing literally this amazing thing as a parent by doing the cry it out method. But it's ass backwards.
I know. Yeah, and it's like one of those things. I am like a big believer in all areas of my life of like making informed and educated decisions and not just like taking anything at face value. And that's like the ethical issue that I have with the sleep training industry is they're making moms think, just like you said, they use words like the gift of sleep.
Yes.
You're teaching them a lifelong skill. Sleep is not a skill, it's a biological function. I think we need, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it's heartbreaking because how many moms do it? And if you're listening to this and you're feeling guilty, I said it earlier, but it's a Maya Angelou quote, and it's something along the lines of, you did the best you had with the information you had
Yeah,
at the time, and now you know better, so you can do better. And that's all
totally.
you can do.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, so I'll give the example of like occasionally Bo will wake up with like a nightmare. And he can be absolutely hysterical and having the hardest time trying to calm himself down. And then I go in there, or my husband, we pick him up, lay him on our chest. He's asleep in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
He just needs that help to calm himself down. And again, you're their safe spot. So to think of, okay, I'm not going to come in there. I'm going to let you just scream. And then like you mentioned the reptilian brain, they're not stopping because they've calmed themselves down. They're stopping because
Totally.
their system's basically been like, I'm going to shut it all off because no one's coming and I need to protect myself.
Yeah. And I love that you brought that up because so self-soothing. Self-soothing has absolutely nothing to do with sleep. The actual definition, the psychological definition of self-soothing is to bring oneself from a dysregulated place to a regulated place. And the actual developmental ability to self-soothe does not happen until between the ages of 18 to 21. And I even think about myself,
Wild.
yes. I even think about myself like at 25. I don't even think at that age I could fully self-soothe, right? Because you're going to someone. Hey, I'm really upset. I want to cry. Like, I don't know. I'm thinking of my mom because I'm very close to my mom. Like, I want to cry in your arms right now because I'm upset, or I just want to like yell. Those are all forms of well, not self-soothing would not be like going to someone else, but like now, it's the deep breaths, it's the I'm feeling dysregulated, I'm going to go on a walk. Like that is self-soothing. Our children are not able to do that.
This is
I
eye-opening.
think that that needs to be talked about so much more because these poor teenagers
Totally.
like treated as if there's something wrong with them when they have anxiety and depression and they like are so pent up and they can't do anything about it. Or like I look back into like my late teens, early 20s, and I was like, oh yeah, like I used to be so dependent. And now I'm like, now I can like actually like think through my emotions and thoughts. And I'm like, no, that's just every human. It's not just you. They
How
just
we're supposed to be.
society doesn't talk about that.
Totally. Yeah. Well, and I think, gosh, I could go down like a whole rabbit hole here, but you know, so many of us were raised like, don't cry, it's okay. And so I think that the ability to self-soothe probably did happen later for us than that 18 to
Yes.
21 year age mark because we were taught to suppress our emotions. So first we then had to become okay with like, it's okay to feel my feelings. Okay, now I'm feeling my feelings. Now how do I move through them?
Yeah.
Oh
And
yeah.
how
I
many
mean, if
adults don't
anyone
even know that.
listening has a kid
Yeah.
and they've had a tantrum and they're totally dysregulated and they've tried to have a conversation with their dysregulated child, you don't get anywhere. It's like a total uphill battle. And I remember it took me a couple years until I started really working on my own self-regulation to learn how the nervous system works. I read The Whole Brain Child. Cannot recommend that book highly enough, by the way.
Totally.
Amazing book. Johanna, add that to your list.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm ready and
there is an
down.
example in that book of talking about like the upstairs or the downstairs of the brain and how when a child's like dysregulated or they're having a tantrum or whatever, like the two parts of the brain are not communicating. So it's like they're shut off. And once I was able to put that view on during one of my child's tantrums or whatever and just connect first, then direct or whatever we need to work through afterwards. But when I tried to give direction first when they're in that hyper state, they don't hear a word you're saying, and all it does is escalate the experience even more and makes the event even worse versus let's connect first, then we'll work through whatever we're dealing with. I think this is like the same concept with the sleep. They
Totally.
need to feel connected to us first before we can even move forward with anything. And I feel like we have that backwards in the sleep industry.
Totally. And so much of it is backwards. And if we look at attachment, like from attachment science, it's like, oh, it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Attachment is the path to everything that we want. We just need to create that secure attachment.
Amazing.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like we've covered a ton. We've hit nervous system stuff. I think we've talked about manipulation as well. Is there anything else that we want to add about like nervous system or manipulation? Or Brittany, is there anything that you think that we missed? I feel like we covered it pretty well.
Yeah, I feel like we covered it well.
Okay, cool. Amber, is there anything else? Otherwise, we can do like the tips to set my family up for success and
No, I think we're good. I think we covered a lot.
well. Yeah, so I think this is a selfish question, but I also think it'd be really helpful for new moms just because it is very overwhelming. If you could like spend like 3 minutes just being like, okay, Johanna, you're about to have a baby. Here's what I'd recommend to set yourself up and your family up for success when it comes to sleep habits. I feel like we've already covered so much of that, but so maybe we'll just kind of like recap what you think would be best.
Yeah, well, I actually do. I was going to say, if I had an expectant mama in front of me, here's what I would say. I would first say, which I think we've covered this, maybe not explicitly, but tune out all of the noise. And that's like step one. Tune out all of the noise and tune into your intuition and your instincts. And I always tell moms, just because someone else has a baby, or a child or a kid or a full grown adult now, does not make them an expert on babies. You are it makes them an expert on their child, but you are the expert on your child. And so just remember that any piece of advice, if it goes through the brain and you're like, doesn't feel good, you don't have to take it, even if it's a trusted family or family friend or a pediatrician or whoever.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
What would you recommend if someone is like forcing advice on you or asks like, "Oh, is your baby sleeping through the night yet?" And you say like, Like, what would be some good responses or that you have tried or you coach your clients on? Just because that is hard. I think something that's kind of interesting is like I'm doing a home birth, so I feel like I've been able
Totally.
to navigate that pretty well with home birth, but then like the baby realm is going to be like a whole new thing, and everyone has an opinion on literally everything. So just some suggestions or advice that you have for when people give you unsolicited advice or just are pushing things on you or won't stop asking or whatever it might be.
Yeah, so I think when people are pushing things on you, it can either be a like smile and nod, and then in your head, you're like, yeah, I'm not subscribing to that, or like that's going in the mental trash, or not even in the, I don't even want you to keep it in your head. That's not even going in the mental trash. It's going in this year and out this
Yeah.
year, right? Like we're not grabbing onto that. If it's somebody more intimate to you, like a family member or friend who like keeps bringing it up, you could simply say, thanks for that advice. It's not what we're choosing to do, but I appreciate, your support. If
Mhm.
it keeps getting pushed on you, then it might be a boundary of like, you know what, I know that you're trying to help me, but this is just a topic that I don't want to discuss. We're not comfortable discussing. If somebody asks how the baby is sleeping, I'm kind of sassy, and I didn't do this with Lila, but if when I have another baby, I will. They're sleeping like a baby. And then that's all you have
Oh,
to
I
say.
like
Like, oh,
that.
yeah, they're sleeping like a baby. Or they're sleeping great. And even if they're not sleeping great, and I think this is where, and in early motherhood, you might not know, you might not be able to gauge like who's a safe space and who isn't a safe space. But you can kind of like, if it's an old lady in the grocery store and she's like, how's the baby sleeping? That would probably be a time where I'm like, great, and
Yeah.
just smile, even if they were up 10 times last night, right? Now, if it's a more trusted friend and you know that it's going to be a safe space, then absolutely open up. But also, sometimes you'll open up and then you'll get the advice that doesn't feel good. And then you just make a mental note, okay, that's probably not a person I'm going to have these conversations with anymore. And you're not lying, right? You're just, I don't want to talk about this, but great is a kind of a bridge.
Yeah. I really like sleeping like a baby.
So do I.
Because it's like so true.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, they're sleeping like a baby, which in what we're meaning is they're literally sleeping like a baby and they're waking up. But
Yeah.
like, the phrase like, oh, they sleep like a baby, they
Yeah.
might think you're meaning that they sleep great.
Yeah. I
Um,
love it.
so yeah, did I answer? I'm like, did I answer
Yeah,
everything?
no, that was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
Perfect.
perfect.
Okay, so first tip was tune out all the noise, tune into your intuition. You're the expert
Yeah.
on your child. Anything else?
So then number two would be early on. Circadian rhythm is not developed until starting at around 8 weeks of age, but you can start working on that by exposing them to lots of bright and natural light during the day and then limiting artificial light exposure at night. So like if you're using a night light, ideally a red light. This is where the idea of like have your baby napping in a dark, quiet environment during the day can actually throw circadian rhythm off because then we're telling the brain like, oh, it's night out when it's not really. So lots of bright natural light. Don't like don't be afraid of floor time or like laying them down because we want them to be, using their bodies and getting their energy out. And then a big one we talked about already is like following baby's cues. And this kind of goes back to like tuning out the noise, but like if baby woke up 15 minutes ago and then all of a sudden they're falling asleep again, it's okay, right? Babies will sleep when they need to sleep if we're really supporting that. We talked about this already too. Do not be afraid to support them to sleep. That's their biological norm. Keeping them close, really embracing, especially in those first 6 months of life. If you can embrace contact sleep, whether that be contact naps, co-sleeping, if you can do it safely, really lean into that because then we're just not only like creating sleep as a safe environment, but you're really building their brain with all of that connection. And I think those would be my big ones. But last but not least, which is an important one, is we talked about it being biologically normal for a baby to wake every 2 to 3 hours. If your baby is waking hourly every single night, or they are awake for hours upon hours in the middle of the night, and this is lasting for longer than a month, that is not sustainable and is generally a sign that something deeper is going on. And so then you do want to get sleep support.
I love that you touched on that, and I want to flip it too. What if the baby is sleeping for longer? Because it's talked about to wake your baby up. Do we actually want to do that? Do we not want to do that? Like, I think so or short sleep windows, maybe get some help and explore what's going on. But what about long ones?
Long ones, I would say, so to answer the question about like, do we wake them up to feed them? That is going to be very unique. Am I boring you guys yet with that same answer? But very unique to each child and would really depend on birth history. Are they following their growth curve? Have they regained the weight that they needed to regain from birth? And working, and I don't want to like discredit pediatricians here, but I would say working with a very trusted lactation consultant if you're breastfeeding to determine if you actually need to be waking them at night to feed them. But generally speaking, no.
Okay.
Now, one thing to think about is oftentimes there's this magical time around 2 to 3 months where little ones will start sleeping through the night. And if we're breastfeeding, then we're not nursing at night. But it can be really helpful actually to awake at least like one time a night and pump to not only like relieve yourself, but generally speaking, that 2 to 3, like 2 months to 3 months, that little window is a magical window, which will not continue to be the norm. So you want your body to keep knowing, I've got to make milk at night.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, this is maybe a silly question, but if you're co-sleeping, like bed sharing, how do you get up and pump and not wake baby?
So I
That
used
seems
to,
hard.
yeah, I will tell you, I used to pump with Lila sleeping next
Yeah.
to me, and she would just sleep.
Okay.
So you could try that, or they make those beautiful like wearable
Yep.
pumps now, and they're very quiet. So you could
Okay.
do something like that too.
Okay.
Or even I didn't my first time around, but now I know so much more, which we all do, right, as we go. But a hand pump is also great. And it's
Okay.
just, to relieve a little bit of that pressure in the breast.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because
Awesome.
once Bo started sleeping through the night on his own, which was like I said, maybe around 6 months or something like that, I was still waking up to pump at night just to keep my supply up. But before that, he was just nursing multiple times. So I never had to really sneak out of the bed to pump.
Yeah,
So, okay, that was helpful.
But I
perfect.
think the thing that really sold me on co-sleeping and just like keeping it as like low maintenance as possible is if I need to feed the baby every 2 to 3 hours, why would I get out of my bed, pull them out of their crib, and go sit down on a chair, then have to put them back down and then get myself back to sleep to then only wake up probably like an hour later, you know? And I feel like once you start thinking about it that way, it's like, yeah, we've really overcomplicated this.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, let's think about it. Like with breastfeeding or with co-sleeping and breastfeeding, you just pop the shirt up, boob goes in the mouth, and then you're both peacefully back to sleep. Because then you didn't even mention this. I don't think you did. Oftentimes it's not just like oh, you're back asleep. I'm gonna place you in the crib and walk out. It's like I placed you in the crib and now you're waking up. And then it's like this whole song and dance to get them back in the crib. And also, I am a big like supporter of also supporting our own sleep as moms. Like there's things that we can be doing. It doesn't just mean like getting our baby to sleep longer. And so anytime we're like moving our body, so walking down the hall, we're waking ourselves up more.
Yeah,
That
totally.
was literally the thing that shifted me to co-sleeping and bed sharing with Bo was like my mental health was in the toilet. I had a really rough postpartum with Bo, both physically and mentally. And so the idea of getting up, if I was pumping, going to take the milk upstairs, trying to get him back to sleep, like that was finally where I was like, why don't we just sleep together? This would be
Yeah,
so much easier. And then my mental health got so much better because I no longer had the stress of trying to get him to sleep on his own. I wasn't getting up and down as much. I wasn't so awake in between. Like that was the game changer for me, was my mental health, honestly.
totally. Yeah. And I would actually add that to the list of what would I tell an expectant mama is choose a sleep setup that's going to maximize your sleep. So in most families that will be co-sleeping, but if safe co-sleeping is not an option, then it would be, I should say safe bed sharing because then it
Yeah.
would be the co-sleeping of
Yeah.
maybe it's a bedside bassinet, maybe it's a sidecar crib, maybe it's baby on a floor bed in your room where you can lay next to them and nurse them and then roll out once they're asleep and then go to your bed. But it's how can we limit your wake up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
That's
love that.
huge. Yeah, we
Yeah, that
had
was
a
like my personal, like selfish, like reason for co-sleeping. Like then you learn so much more, but I'm like, well, selfishly, I have a hard time going back to sleep when I'm up in the middle of the night. So the less I can do and the more sleepy I can stay, the better I will be able to go back to sleep.
Well, the
Totally.
amount of times I would nurse Bo and I would just fall asleep to him nursing, and then he would just fall asleep. So it was like, and then you wake up and he's just got your nipple in his mouth. It's like it worked totally fine because sometimes he just needed that comfort. He didn't want a full even nursing session. He just wanted something to soothe him, and then okay, back to sleep. And then I would just fall asleep while nursing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Brittni, this has been fantastic.
Yeah,
I've
thank
been
you
like kind of
so much.
stressed because of, not stressed really, but like it's been on my mind to learn more about co-sleeping because I really because it's so crazy out there, but I really like how you just keep it simple of like put your common sense glasses on. And when I like really do that and zoom out and don't allow it to be complicated, it really doesn't have to be complicated.
It really doesn't have to be complicated. And like from the, I mean, like you're doing a home birth, right? You trust in your body and it's like trust in yourself. And like think about the millions and millions of women who did it way before us without the snoo, without the pacifier, without all of it.
Yeah,
And they did it. Like we can do it. It's just the noise makes it so hard.
so hard.
I think it's almost like all these gadgets we have that are supposed to help us and make our lives easier, make things more stressful and more overwhelming.
Totally.
Totally. I totally agree with that. And I mean, I run my business on Instagram, so I'm not going to sit here and be like, social media is ruining us. But you really need to carefully curate who you're following on social media. And even if you follow a sleep account that in the beginning you felt like gave you really good sleep tips, but now when you're seeing the account, it's triggering you or stressing you out, unfollow, mute, whatever you have to do.
Yep, couldn't agree more. Okay, well, we really want to honor your time because we could talk to you all day. So let's wrap this up with a couple of things. One, is there anything, Brittni, that we did not cover that you're like, this is something I would love every mom or every family to know in regards to sleep? And then, secondly, if someone wants to work with you, how can they find you? What are your resources? All that good stuff.
Yes. So I would say I feel like we've comprehensively covered everything. Again, kind of like referring back to what we just talked about, that list of things, but tune out the noise, embrace the contact. Also, like one of the biggest things that you can remember is that your child's sleep is unique to them. So even if you have a best friend who has a baby who's the same age as yours and they're doing completely different things, they're not your baby. I'm trying to like think of any like rapid fire things I want to get in there. Sleep is not linear. That's actually a really
That's
good
a good
one.
one.
So it's really normal to have periods of sleep where sleep feels really easy and you're getting more sleep, and then all of a sudden sleep kind of goes off the rails and they're waking more frequently. And it doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It just means that you have a human baby who's growing and developing.
I love it.
I
Okay,
think
how
that's
can people find
everything.
you?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram at resting_in_motherhood. You can find me at restinginmotherhood.com. And I work one-on-one with families with sleep. So if you're needing one-on-one support, I would love to support you in your journey.
I
Awesome.
love
Do
it.
you have any like resources, guides, courses, or anything like that?
Yes, so I do. I have a library of resources and courses. I have freebies on everything from all of the progressions that you get in the 0 to 12 month age, all the progressions you get in the toddler stage, a naps guide. So I have lots of good freebies. I have a 0 to 12 month course. I have a toddler course, and then also kind of like one-off, like a night weaning workshop for little ones 12 months plus, independent naps workshop. I've got everything that you would need to support you in sleep 0 to 4. I have it.
So go check out her page, everybody.
Yeah,
Yes.
come hang out with me.
And save this episode and share it. And I feel like this episode was like a course in itself. So thank you
Yes,
so,
this
so
was
much.
so fun.
Okay. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Go follow Brittni if you do not already, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Thanks.
That's a wrap on today's episode. Thank you for hanging out with us on the Wild and Fierce podcast. If you loved this conversation, we'd be so grateful if you left a review and shared it with a friend who needs to hear this.
And if you really loved it, take a screenshot, share it on your stories, and tag us. We'd love to see it. Until next time, stay wild, stay fierce, and keep owning your journey.